finally made it to the final episode of Hawkeye on Disney+. The last week or so, it's been a hell of a ride for MCU fans between last week's episode, Spider-Man No Way Home, and now this finale. Those big revelations we had in last week's episode had me very excited for the finale, between the fact that Eleanor Bishop was the one that hired the hit on Clint Barton, and obviously the big stinger at the end of the episode with Vincent D'Onofrio being revealed as returning to the MCU as Kingpin finally. It's been a great week between, like I said, Spider-Man No Way Home reintroduced Matt Murdock, we got Wilson Fisk and Hawkeye, so it's great to get these characters once again in the MCU, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun because of it. As far as season finales though, it was kind of how I expected the show to be. It was very small scale, just like the show itself, but I think overall it was still pretty fine, still pretty enjoyable. It made me pretty happy that we opened up the episode with a lot of Wilson Fisk Kingpin, because I wasn't sure just how much Vincent D'Onofrio was going to be in the show, but he's actually in the episode quite a lot, so I was actually really surprised by that. You could definitely tell that he's a little bit different with this Disney Plus version compared to the one that we saw on Netflix, but overall he's still pretty menacing. Just an intimidating presence all around, no matter who he's talking to, whether it be Kazi, Eleanor Bishop, or even Maya, because we get some scenes with them together, and it's very awkward now that Maya knows the truth about what happened with her real father. There really isn't a whole lot of Maya in this episode. That was kind of a bummer because I've liked her character so much in the Hawkeye series, but with where we go towards the end of the episode, I could see us getting a lot more development when her own show comes around. I hope that comes around sooner rather than later. One of the many emotional moments in this episode that I quite enjoyed and made me smile is Clint finally giving into the fact that they're partners now, officially being a team, because it has been quite a rocky road just to get to this point of them being on the same page. I'm liking the maturity that we've had just in these first few episodes with Kate, because now she's kind of fully embracing being a hero now. Like, we're talking crafting new trick arrows together. A lot of them are pretty awesome when we do see them in the final battle, and just all around they're just working together at the party when everything's going awry in the final act. There's a lot of stuff in general going on at this party. I feel bad for Clint because so many people are trying to kill him at this party. You have the tracksuit mafia outside trying to kill him. You have Elena coming inside the party to try and kill him. So no matter where Clint goes, he's trying to be murdered. Much like in last week's episode, one of my favorite moments from last week was the interactions between Kate Bishop and Yelena Belova. And once again, one of my favorite moments in the finale is when they get to talk once again in the elevator. All of their scenes are just so hilarious. There's so much charm and heart to them. Even if the subject matter isn't the nicest, because the fact that, you know, she's here to kill Clint Barton, and Kate's trying her best to kind of be friendly while also making sure that she's not going to kill Clint Barton, but it doesn't really go that well for her. All around, just anytime they have any sort of interactions, whether they're fighting, they're quipping, all that stuff, they're just great. I would watch a whole show just dedicated to these two doing missions together. I hope that they get to interact more in future MCU projects, whether that be like a Young Avenger, something like that, because their chemistry is off the charts. I love both of these characters a lot. I need to see them at least sometime in the near future doing some stuff together. I did find it hilarious that in the end battle we have Clint getting stuck in the giant Christmas tree. It's not like a moment that really stuck out or anything. I just thought that was a really funny passing scene. Also, just the LARPers joining in on the fun. They're kind of the backup when everybody's fighting the tracksuit mafia. I really underestimated just how much the LARPers are going to be involved with the main storyline of the show, because I really thought that was just going to be like a one and done thing in the early episodes when they weren't going to be seen again. But we've seen them consistently in the fact that they made the new suits for Kate and Clint, which, by the way, I think the suits are amazing. They look like they're ripped right out of the Matt Fraction run. Personally, I haven't been the biggest fan of the tracksuit mafia in the Hawkeye series. I think they're fine, but as main foes, antagonists, they haven't been all that exciting or anything. And even in this episode, with this being kind of like the big final battle with them, they are taken out pretty quickly. Kate and Clint use all of their trick arrows, and it's really not that hard to take them out. It's like barely an inconvenience to them. It was an emotional moment though when Maya steps in and actually takes on Kazi and ends up killing him. That was pretty sad because they've had a lot of moments together, even if I'm not like a big fan of Kazi either. The most emotional moment for me in the entire episode that really pulled on my heartstrings was when Yelena and Clint finally fight. It's a good fight, but I mean, Clint's not really trying to fight her. He's trying to just tell her the truth about what happened with Natasha. She doesn't believe him. But once Clint pulls out the whistle, like, that's when like the waterworks start, when they finally get to talk about everything with Natasha and just how close that Clint and Natasha were, and the fact that Yelena didn't get to really say goodbye to Natasha. And it's one of those things with this show is they've really done a great job just paying tribute to Black Widow. I mean, they didn't really get a whole lot of that in her, you know, movie or in Avengers Endgame, but they've done a great job with it in Hawkeye more so than the other stuff. It wasn't like a big surprise or anything that Yelena didn't end up going through with killing Clint. I wonder what the repercussions are going to be when she does go and talk to Valentina about it, but otherwise, you know, good for her. I hope to see Yelena very soon in the MCU somewhere else. The big surprise fight of this episode, though, definitely has to go to Kate Bishop taking on Wilson Fisk one-on-one. I think they actually made Kingpin even stronger in this version because he's punching and people are flying. He's ripping car doors off of their hinges and throwing them like it's nothing. I mean, Kingpin was a very strong man in the Netflix show, but I don't recall him ever being this strong. All things considered, it was a pretty fun fight, though. Kate Bishop trying to take on Wilson Fisk 1v1 using arrows. He gets some good assistance when her mom hits him with the car and he goes flying, and then the trick arrows cause an explosion. He goes flying again. Kingpin gets really messed up by the end of this episode. Because we're not even finished there, because he escapes and then we run into him and Maya just point blank shoots him right out of the comic book pages. He doesn't die from that in the comic books. I'd be very upset if they actually killed him off after this, because they just brought him back. But it'll be interesting to see what Kingpin is like probably in the future stuff that we see of him in the MCU. You don't bring back Vincent D'Onofrio to just have him in like 1 1/4 of an episode because he was only a picture last week. Very small finale all around, very low stakes. Clint finally gets to go back home and be with his family for Christmas time. We do see that the watch that his wife had was actually an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. watch. That was a pretty cool, fun thing to finally reveal. And Kate Bishop is also there, and they burn the Ronin costume, and they think about new names to call Kate Bishop. You know, Hawk Girl, Hawk Woman, all that goofy stuff. Then we do have some post-credit stuff, but it's just the Rogers musical, which is amazing, but we've really not really had a lot of post-credit scenes for Hawkeye compared to like the great ones we had in like Loki and WandaVision, all that stuff. There really wasn't that here. All around as a whole, including this finale, I think the show was fine. We finally got some good character development for Clint after being in the MCU for a decade. We introduced Kate Bishop, who is probably one of my new favorite characters, along with more Elena Belova, who is actually one of my favorite MCU characters right now. I don't know. I mean, it's a fine show. It's definitely not my least favorite of the MCU shows. I think that I probably like this a little bit more than The Falcon and Winter Soldier and What If. But it's a solid show, not one of my favorites. I'm probably not going to rewatch it unless I have to remember stuff in the future when it comes to like future MCU projects. But let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of this finale for Hawkeye? Did you like this finale? Do you not like the finale? What did you think of all the big reveals, all the action sequences, the stuff with Kingpin in this episode? And where do you think we're going to see any of these characters next when it comes to Clint, Kate Bishop, Yelena, Wilson Fisk, Maya? I mean, we know some of these people are going to show up in other projects that are already announced, like Echo has a show. Anyway, share all your thoughts down below. It's for the first time in the conversation with you guys in the comment section. Thank you guys always sharing my reviews. I really appreciate it, though. Make sure you leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel so you update movie reactions, unboxings, and more. For the next time, I'll see you guys later.